What is up, Steeler Nation? Welcome back to another episode. What is up? Sorry about that, guys. Let me start this over real quick. I'm having some difficulty with my camera, but we're going to have to do it this way.
Sorry about that, guys. Let me start this over.
So. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Hangover. I'm Daniel, your host, and alongside with me, sorry about the interruption and the delay, some technical difficulties with the host. Alongside with me is Shannon White. Shannon, how's it going, my man? You're muted, by the way.
It's just not been a good start to the game yesterday or to tonight's show. I can't tell when we're live. Half the time, I don't, like I said, I have no control over that. I thought we would start and then we had a problem and we wouldn't, and I thought we was getting ready to restart. So, apologies, but I guess we're getting back to our original standards, maybe before the Steelers will.
I hope so. As the title says, the jig is up. The news is out. Nobody wants you. The fire Mike Tomlin rants and chants have gone through Acrisure Stadium during the game yesterday as the Pittsburgh Steelers lose again in embarrassing fashion against the Buffalo Bills. A game where, I'll be honest, it appeared to me that the fan base was out of it. I saw, I mean, not the fan base, of course the fan base was out of it, but the players were out of it. I felt like by the third quarter, some of the reactions of some of the players on the field was, it's over. Wow, they threw in the white flag. I know there's a lot to talk about and a lot to decompress on this game, But if you were in stadium, would you have been chanting "Fire Tomlin"?
Well, I've been talking about that since last year, but before they give him this latest extension.
Uh-huh.
It's hard for me to forgive being a fan since the mid 70s. I've loved this franchise and this team with all my heart. I've looked forward to football. Fall's my favorite time of year because of football. I love football, always have. And this franchise in the last little less than a decade has sucked the love of football out of my life. Now my family don't watch the games with me anymore. They get up and go do something else. I'm the only idiot that sits there and watches the whole game. I suffer through because I have more loyalty and I care more than half the people on the field. Because as I said before, they're paid to care. I'm not. Ownership doesn't care. They're not worried about the quality of the product they're putting on the field. The players don't care because, hey, I ain't going to be back next year anyway. Or I'll go somewhere else. Hopefully Cameron Hayward had a really good Thanksgiving, was able to feed his family because without the extra money, he wouldn't have been able to do that, he said. And TJ Watt, he could go out there, sneak it up, not make any impact at all game. If anything, he was negative when he was on the field because they kept cutting back and running to his side, and he was not setting an edge at all. It was ridiculous. He tries so hard to make a play now because he can't do it just on ability alone anymore. He tries to cheat the snap and he gets offsides, or he doesn't keep lane integrity. He doesn't set the edge. He gives up countless big plays, and he makes none. The only reason he made a play against the Bears is because Williams was an idiot and did what he did. But what I'm saying is that's one of the worst contracts I've ever seen. Paying a guy $41 million to get what they're getting out of him is ridiculous. But again, I said that 3 years ago. Trade him while he was at the height of his value. And everybody said I was crazy. It was the craziest idea ever. Okay, Dallas Cowboys traded their best player, Micah Parsons. And they started out rough, right? Their defense was really, really bad, and they looked bad and all that, but they got a good return. Well, now they look like they could be a contender in the NFC because they traded, and now they've got a brighter future ahead. Everybody talks about George Pickens. Well, George Pickens wasn't going to do any of this in Pittsburgh because they don't have a quarterback to get him the ball. They don't have an offensive coordinator capable. They don't have a scheme that's weighs risk versus rewards, throws the football down the field, down the middle. All the things that he's doing now, he could have never done in Pittsburgh. I keep hearing the same thing, but people who are not knowledgeable football fans. This franchise is broken. They have no hope. The only hope they have is a complete gutting, a complete rebuild. Get rid of this coaching staff. Get rid of a lot of the players. Hoping you can get something out of these older guys that really ain't worth much anymore and start new, like the Patriots, like the Rams, like Denver. Look at all these teams that are sitting or near the top of their divisions. The Chiefs are down. The Bills are not as good as they once were, even though you couldn't have told that yesterday. But bottom line is this. They said, the Bills, both are starting tackles is out. And I told everybody before the game, Watt won't do squat because he can't beat tight ends anymore, much less a quality tackle. I'll be honest, I'd rather had the Bills starting tackles versus what the Steelers have right now. And I like Fautano. I think he has a bright future. But based on what the Steelers' edges look like against the backup tackles, they're better because they just totally shut down any pass rush the Steelers would have even contemplated having. And as you said, the team quit. The fans have already been there. But again, I said it after the Bengals game, and everybody criticized me. But now we're seeing, 5 weeks later, this is the crap. This is what you could see coming if you're paying attention.
Yeah. And, to be honest with you, the Bills didn't play all that great. They had 2 turnovers right away. They're just a solid team that has confidence, that's well coached at the end of the day. But I think you hit on a lot of solid points there. Um, I think you're correct on almost everything that you said. This team gave up. There's no fight. The coaches, offense, defense, whatever side you want to talk about, it's poor. I mean, there's some statements that we're going to go over and some things we'll look at. We'll start off with what TJ Watt said. He said that he had never seen a team run the same play over and over again and be so successful. I was watching Debo and Joe Hayden talk about that specific play that they ran 20 times towards TJ Watt's side, by the way. And what they were saying was that they were forcing the Steelers, they were manipulating them. So they knew that if they put out 3 wide receivers onto the field, that the Steelers were going to run in nickel no matter what. And well, they were just deciding to run out of 3 wide receiver sets and attack the cornerbacks who have a history of not having, been the best tacklers on the field. And so that's exactly what they did. And they did it over and over again. And instead of the Steelers adjusting, they just said, all right, I guess they figured that Buffalo was eventually going to give up and think that, I guess they were anticipating Buffalo thinking that the Steelers were going to eventually adjust. And I think everybody knows at this point that you don't have to adjust when it comes to the Steelers. If you have something that's working, just keep doing it because they're not going to adjust to you. Joe Hayden said, or James Harrison actually had some even more interesting comments. I'll read this and I want to get your response to it. James Harrison on his podcast said, I have never been a person that thought Coach Tomlin was a great coach. I thought he was a good coach. I'll be honest, part of that is because when I was slated to be the starter, when Joey Porter left, he drafted 1 and 2 outside linebackers. Right now, we have coaches on the staff. And when I say coaches, I'm saying this. A coach is someone that tells you what to do. And it doesn't matter if they're telling you what they're telling you to do is right or wrong. A good coach gets you to play to your potential. And right now, the players we have on that team, I've seen play, and they're not playing up to their potential. And a great coach gets you to play beyond your potential. And I would say that he's absolutely spot on when it comes to getting these players up and going and getting them to play to their potential. They're not playing to their potential at all. You speak about TJ Watt. One of the things that I'd say was his claim to fame, so to speak, what made him a special player was that he went 140% every single play. He's jogging out there half the time now. He's taking plays off. Now, I don't know if it's because he's hurt or he's tired because they're out there on how many snaps. But if that's the case, you're ineffective, bro. Let Sawyer go out there and at least he's not jogging behind the line of scrimmage. What are your thoughts on what Harrison had to say about the coach and what I had to say about TJ?
Well, I totally agree with Harrison. What needed a coach? When he was the best player, defensive player on the planet, he needed a coach that would have helped that team utilize him to his full capacity. And he needed a GM that would surround him with talent that they could have won the title. Now he's old. I'm just going to be honest. Watt doesn't look nothing like the Watt that we remember. Mm-hmm. He's not as explosive. He's not as disruptive. He's not as quick twitch. He has to cheat. That's why, like I said earlier, he makes the mistakes. He loses integrity. He can't play straight up and dominate the guy across from him. How many times do you see him get matched up with a tight end? It gets stalemated. And he doesn't put any pressure. Yesterday, I think he had no hits on the quarterback, no pressures, no tackles, no sacks. And that's $41 million, guys. I mean, let's just be honest. He overcame a bad scheme. Nothing's changed. This is the same scheme now. It's just Watt got old. Hayward got old. A lot of these guys have got old, and that even the guys they brought in are older. But it's not that it's all of a sudden that they can't coach now. They couldn't coach back then. It's just they did the same things, as I've said for years, and relied on superstar players to play above and beyond and play over the standard and help them be effective. It's again the only reason they scored yesterday, Daniel, is because the running back Cook just dropped the ball. I mean, it wasn't like the ball got hit or he was just running and he kneed it with his own knee and knocked the ball out, or the Steelers would have been shut out yesterday. I guess they could have kicked the field goal for 3 there late. When they went for it. I mean, again, what kind of call is that? You're running the ball with Gainwell up the middle. You haven't been able to run the ball all game. It's not just, it's a complete and utter catastrophe. This team has nothing. They do nothing well. They can't throw the ball down the field. They don't have the quickness to get a lot of yards after the catch or passes behind the line. They can't run the ball great. They don't pass block great. They don't run block great. What are they good at? I mean, I'll be honest with you. They have hit rock bottom, and it ain't getting better until they totally clean out the kitchen.
They're good at 2 things. They're good at kicking the ball with Boz, and they're good at getting lucky with some turnovers, because that's what it's been sometimes.
Oh, it's straight luck, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it's been. And, outside of that, this is the worst team I have seen in a while. Offensively, defensively, I don't even think Matt Canada called a game that was worse than that offensively. The offense had the ball for 18 minutes. That entire game. I mean, this is ridiculous. Arthur Smith is a joke. He came in, the only reason Arthur Smith has had a coaching career as long as he has had is because of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry made his career, got him the job as the Atlanta Falcons head coach. And because of what he did with the running game in Tennessee, got him the job as the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. And that's the truth at the end of the day. But
that's the style that Tomlin wants.
That is the style that Tomlin wants. And I think he also wanted a yes man, a guy that maybe perhaps nobody else was looking at. I don't think Arthur Smith was, had his phone ringing off the hook for him to go to other places. And it's bad. It's bad across the board. The decision making, the play calling, to run the ball on 4th down, to run the ball. I think there was one on 3rd and 8, and they ran the ball. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you like? It was so frustrating. And then, on the 4th down, they did another run, and it was just like constant. Like I was just like, this can't be it. There has to be a change. Something has to happen. And it's too frustrating. Arthur Smith, and that's the one thing about the Steelers organization is they're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire Tomlin. They're going to keep everybody. Everybody's going to be back next year. We're going to have to go through this an entire season unless, some more chants start to ring out. I mean, there's only 2 more home games for that to be something that is available. But do you actually think that this team is going to change under under Rooney?
It's not going away. I mean, it's going to be booing at home. It's going to be the chance fire Tomlin. It's going to be shows like ours that's going to not pull any punches. They're going to call a spade a spade. That's not going to go away, and I don't think the Rooneys are going to like it. As much as they want to be loyal and they don't, and Art don't like confrontation and he don't like change, he's going to get sick and tired of hearing what's coming. Because now, even though I've been saying it for 2 years and saying what I've said about Watt for 3 years, because I've seen this coming, now everybody's saying it. Now the national sports media are saying it, except for the ones that's like, who you going against better? And listen, guys, it doesn't matter at this point. Mike Tomlin in 19 seasons has won playoff games in 4 of those seasons. Now, you can say what you want about Noel, who I think he won like out of 22. He won in 14 years. And then I think Kyler only had like 3 or 4 total that didn't win a playoff game. Now, they didn't win titles, but they won playoff games. Not only can Tomlin he struggles to get there, but he ain't won squat. 4 out of 19 years. Everybody wants to talk about the never losing season. They call that Hall of Fame coach. They keep saying he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. When Dan Rooney, in his wisdom, and Dan Rooney was brilliant, hired Mike Tomlin. He was the perfect guy. He was the guy that was going to come in unassuming and just pick up where Kyler left off and run with that team with a Hall of Fame quarterback and players like Palomalu and different guys. Well, not Palomalu, but you know what I'm talking about, the guys that they had. And they come in, and Colbert was still hitting on a lot of his drafts. And offensively, if you had been, you made receivers look good. But then when those guys started getting older and they start retiring and free agents, pick off here and there, Tomlin has never showed the ability, because he's not an X's and O's coach. He's a rah-rah coach. He's a kind of a pseudo daddy figure for a lot of guys who need one, but he is not a X's and O's tactician of a coach, and he cannot develop a roster to save his life. He has the wrong temperament. He has to have older guys because that's what he inherited, and he thinks, just like Noel thought he could rebuild the still Curtin dynasty, just like Cowher tried to keep making everything work and put a square peg in a round hole with Cordell Stewart. These guys had to have the answer, and they couldn't duplicate it. Well, Kyler couldn't even start it until he got Ben. And then Tomlin inherited what he inherited, and he got the 2 Super Bowls, and he won 1. But then after that, he's never been able to come close because Colbert lost his mojo. Little Austin Powers reference there. But this is where you got to start over, accept your bad decisions like Watt's contract, Hayward, Patrick Queen, different guys. Get out from under this, whatever you got to do. I don't know if you've seen the super chat that Claude Bishop put in there.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
I think we definitely need to address that before we forget. But he says, would you trade TJ for a pick and get out from under his contract, and will Tomlin be back next year? I would have traded TJ already. Now you ain't going to get much. You might get a 4th round pick somewhere in the middle of the 4th, but I'd still do it to get out from under the contract. You're probably going to have to eat some of that contract too, because there ain't nobody wanting to pay what he is now, $41 million. I don't care who they are. And
I think you can get somebody to buy TJ for more than a 4th round. I
guarantee you. Now, again, I've said stuff last year, 3 years ago. I said stuff 6 weeks ago, and everybody argues with me. But I'm telling you, you watch TJ and you focus on him on a snap-by-snap basis. He is not the same player. He just is not. And he's blocked a lot of times by a quality tight end. Now, Jonnu Smith couldn't block him.
Right, but I think
could block him, but I'm talking about a quality blocking tight end.
Right, but I think you also got to look at
now.
I think you also got to look at the snap counts and things of that nature. If he's going to if a team is going to trade significant draft capital for him, or any draft capital of any value, you're probably looking at a team that is on the up and up, that are on the rise. You're probably not looking at a team that's going to put in all their eggs in one basket of a 30-plus-year-old linebacker if they have holes at the quarterback position and other stuff. So if you had like a Kansas City Chiefs, or if you had one of these other teams that maybe perhaps are a little bit settled with their team, they're probably looking at TJ and saying, hey, our defense isn't that bad. Our offense can stay on the field longer than 18 minutes. He's going to have the production that he had with us because he's not going to be forced to stay out on the field for very long. And they're going to work towards his strengths, right? They're going to, somebody can talk themselves into thinking we're going to move him around. We're not going to drop him into coverage, and we're going to utilize him as a pass rusher, as only as a pass rusher, which is probably something the Steelers should do, to be honest with you, but they don't.
Well, they tried to move him. If you've paid attention the last couple of games, they moved him around. They tried to play the run defense up the middle. They tried because he was not setting an edge at all. And guess what? He's not good at that either. He just is not the same player. He's not explosive. He's not impactful. He's just out there. And it's sad to watch. But same thing happened to JJ. JJ would flash, have one big play in the game, and be invisible the rest of the game. Because when they fall off the mountain, When they're that kind of player, they fall off completely. It's a swan dive straight off the side of the Grand Canyon. He's done. If you could get a fourth at him, we'll see when it happens. If they do or he retires, he might just freaking retire. But if they do, if it's more than a fourth, I'll be shocked. But I'll come on here, unlike most national media people, because I'm nobody and it doesn't matter. I'll come on here and immediately admit I was wrong. But I'm telling you what is done.
I'm not saying
and
that
Hayward looked like an idiot yesterday. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Hayward after the break.
Knee. Josh Allen's a guy that's a competitor, but I've never seen him have real problems with anybody. And here's him and Hayward. And not only are you wanting to argue and say stuff, if they're destroying you and they're running the ball down your throat worse than we've ever seen in the modern era for the Steelers, as far as Acusure, Hadfield, whatever you want to call it. And he's out there jaw jacking, running his mouth. Play. Make a freaking play in the game. Get your teammates to make some plays. That's how you talk. That's how you back it up. All he was doing looked like an idiot.
Yeah, I wasn't too impressed with Cam Hayward's statements after the game as well. And we'll get into that after the break. But, going back to TJ real quick, I think somebody can convince themselves because at the end of the day, if the Steelers give up a fourth round for TJ Watt, they're going to look just as bad as they did with George Pickens. And the thing is going to be the same. It's going to be like, well, he wasn't going to do that in Pittsburgh. But you still, the potential is there. The potential is for him to have maybe not the 18, 19, 20 sacks that he had before. But, I think the potential there is for a 12 to 14 sack year. If he stays healthy enough and he can have an offense that is, doing their part, and if he can stay motivated, I mean, it cannot be easy to stay motivated when the offense is playing as poorly as they are. It cannot be. I mean, you have players on the offensive side who are not as motivated because of how bad they suck. I cannot imagine how the defense feels when they have to go out there and continually have to force turnovers and things of that nature. And they've had to do this for, multiple years at this point. And so at the age that he's in, with everything else that's going on, if the Steelers gave up a fourth round pick for TJ Watt, I guarantee he's going to show 12 to 15 sacks somewhere else. And the comments of, Steelers got fleeced again. Omar Khan gets conned again, because of what happened with like George Pickens. And I agree. George probably would not have accomplished the same stuff that he's accomplishing in Dallas. But that doesn't mean that his worth, because, they should have probably got a little bit more out of him. And maybe perhaps a little bit sooner. And maybe perhaps made it not as known about the problems that they had. If they had the coaching staff or they had a team that could please him, because I think that's the other problem too. I mean, you have a high performance athlete who's able to go out there and perform, and you're not playing to their strengths. I mean, how does that deal with their motivation, with their livelihood? I mean, the game is their livelihood. This is their names on the line, their potential future paychecks, everything is on the line there. And I think this is why, the likes of like a Jacoby Meyer or even a Shaheed decides to go other places to play like Jacksonville instead of Pittsburgh, because it's not going to look good for them for their career if they go to Pittsburgh. And I'm just hoping that they could swindle something more than a fourth round pick for TJ.
I agree. I got to say this. The Steelers, you could brought in prime Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers in his prime, and he wouldn't be successful in this offense. Not with this receiving corps, not with this offensive coordinator, not with this offensive line and running game. Now, so we can blame it on the offense that TJ is not good anymore. Okay, but here's my argument to that. And you know me, I'm honest. I love my Steelers, and I love them all, but I'm going to be honest. How's Myles Garrett going to break the sack record this year? They suck. They suck just as bad as the Steelers. They've sucked his whole career. He ain't never won squat, but he has won one more playoff game than TJ Watt. But I digress. He's went out and he's played hard, and he's going to probably break a record this year on a really, really bad team that might actually finish with a worse record than the Steelers. So we can blame it on the Steelers offense all we want, but you can still be a great player on a bad team. And I think White has had years like that. He's been a great player on a bad team. Whether they were one game over 500, I don't call that a great team. I'm sorry. You can still be a great player on a bad team. And White just doesn't have it anymore. When he went over 30, he lost it, and he ain't never getting it back. Father Time is undefeated. But when we want to use the argument, blame it on the offense, then let's look at Myles Garrett. And you know I'm not a fan of his, but that dude's a baller, and he's playing.
No, I don't disagree, but there's also some other players on that defense doing their part. You know, it's not like, that defense gives up.
Who is it? Who's the other player? Do they
well,
still have Devin Bush?
They do. And
And
right
guess
now,
what?
Devin
He's
Bush is
certainly
playing
better in
better than
Cleveland.
some of the Steelers
Ain't he
players.
better in Cleveland? Daniel, come on. Devin Bush, who wouldn't even throw a lick. He wouldn't throw a hanky to try to make a tackle. He would
Yeah, he's making tackles for Cleveland.
Cleveland, ain't he?
But that should tell you something. That should tell you something if their defense is doing something. Because I tell you what, the Cleveland Browns defense as a totality is better than the Steelers defense.
Oh, I mean, you can argue Cleveland's heading in the right direction right now more than the Steelers are. And that's embarrassing.
That is
But you can
embarrassing,
argue
so.
that. I mean, Cincy, again, what do they have on defense? I don't know. But they're doing better than the Steelers right now.
They are. They are.
I mean, and I'm sorry, guys, but, this is rock bottom, in my opinion. This is rock bottom. Because here's the thing. Way I was raised, there's one thing you can control in life. One thing. In work, sports, anything, is your effort. And if your effort is dependent on how good your team is, or your effort is who's lined up next to you, no, all you can do is you. You control you, how hard you play, what kind of effort you give at work, and on the field, wherever. And this team is not giving the effort. We can blame it on whatever we want to blame it on, but it's a complete and utter collapse across the board.
No, I don't disagree with you. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we got more about this game. You guys won't be disappointed. Hey, thank you for sticking with us. Welcome back. Before we get back to the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, SteelCurtNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out after you're done listening to this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're not checking out the audio-only podcast from the website, you're missing out on a lot of content. That includes mine, State of the Steelers, which airs out on Saturdays at 11 a.m., talking about the upcoming matchup and the state of the Steelers and where they are in the division and in the AFC playoff picture, which they currently still are. Now, we talked a little bit about Cam Hayward. He had a few things to say after the game.
Did you see the other super chat?
Oh, yes. Let's pull that up real quick. We have T Lions coming in saying, do you think this season is where Tomlin's winning do you think this season is a season where Tomlin's winning streak is over? Oh, do you think that finally happens?
Yes.
I think it's very possible. There's a lot of football left to be played, guys. They're 6-6. They're still fighting for first place. I think they're stumbling backwards fast. The last 17 games that they've played, if that's some sort of indication of where they're going, that's going downhill at a quick pace. I do think that this is the possibility. There's some tough games left up on the schedule. You got the Ravens twice. You have Detroit. The Steelers are going to play Detroit as well. I know they play Miami, and they also are playing the Cleveland Browns, which are probably the only two games that are left on the schedule, in my opinion, that are winnable. That you can say that this team might go in there and win. The rest of them, I honestly think that they're going to get the brakes knocked off of them. Especially if they go out there with the enthusiasm and the performance that they've been playing for the last 2 weeks. which if history is an indication of what's to come, it's kind of like what they did last year at the end, in those 5 last games after they lost like the first 2 or so. The morale, the everything was down on the team, and they packed it in early. It is what it is. They packed it in early. I feel like this team's already been packing it in. I think they packed it in around the third quarter of last week's game.
Oh,
Once,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
when Aaron Rodgers went down and the ball went into the end zone and Buffalo scored, that game was over. There was no coming back. This team is too fragile, and they live too far into their fears to overcome something like that happening, in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. They didn't throw the ball down the middle of the field until they were losing whatever it was, 27-7, and they were trying to drive down on the one where they ran the ball 4th and 2, and they hit Washington, I think, on 2 passes down the middle. But again, they can't throw anything deep down the middle, because like I said, there's a chance it'll be a turnover. They have no concept of risk versus reward analytics, when it's wise to go for it. And why would you ever go for it on 4th down if that's the best play call you got? It's embarrassing. It is just absolutely embarrassing. And why play the Renegade when you're getting beat that bad? I told my wife, I said, they went to break, and I'm like, I hope to gosh they don't play the Renegade right now. Well, they waited until they failed on 4th and 2. And then our colleagues that was in the stadium, after they failed on 4th and 2, they played the Renegade. Like, you're talking about somebody that's clueless, that has no sense of timing. Why the heck would you play the Renegade there?
See, here's why they do it, right? So Mike Tomlin chants were getting louder and louder. And so they felt maybe if we play Renegade, it'll stop the Fire Tomlin chants, which it did. They were replaced with stronger boos, but at least the Fire Tomlin chants were over. I mean, I think that might have been the only positive outcome of playing Renegade is that the fan base didn't get loud enough to hear the Fire Tomlin chants on national media on the TV, because I couldn't hear it, and so it wasn't that loud. Now I could hear Fire Matt Canada, years ago, and so it hadn't got to that point yet. Now I think that if the Steelers continue to play this manner, it's going to get that way fairly quickly. But that should be something, that should tell the owner something. You had Chuck Noll, you've had Bill Cowher, and I don't believe either one of them, as bad as they had performed as head coaches at certain parts of their career, I don't remember any firing of any coaches chance in the stadium outside of under only Tomlin's regime, where he was responsible for Matt Canada. And now this stuff. Are you familiar with? I know Bill Cowher was asked, and he said there was never any chance for him to be fired from the fan base. Was there anything like that from the fan base to Noel at the end of his career?
No. It was different time, different era. It wasn't before free agency. It wasn't, easy believism, so to speak, that you could turn things around quickly. They was commitment to a head coach and to a program and to doing it the right way and patience. You just wanted to see the effort. Again, back to that big E, that's effort. I think any fan can watch a young player struggle at times, but you see that effort and you're like, okay, he's going to be good. We got to give him a chance to make the rookie mistakes, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you see guys not even trying and you see them not changing, not making any adjustments, they kept saying the Steelers need to make adjustments at halftime. I'm like, where's Romo been for the last 10 years? Through Tomlin's tenure. When do the Steelers make adjustments? They don't. I mean, either it works or it doesn't. But there is no X's and O's. It's not schematics. It's not game plan and strategy. It's just if it works, it works. If it don't, we're screwed. There is no adjustments. And so I remember people really frustrated with Bill Cowher. So we didn't have the social media like we got now. But how much he loved Cordell Stewart. and he wanted to stick with Cordell Stewart. And being around Pittsburgh and having friends up there, they're like, the fans are sick and tired. The Ensers are sick and tired of him wanting to stick with Stewart. They need to do something else and try something different. And he really didn't have that quarterback. Maddox was maddening. I don't know if you remember Tommy Maddox, but he would have a really good game, and then he'd have a complete and utter stinker of just mammoth proportions. So he was so inconsistent, but at least he had some good games.
Yeah,
and he had Plexico and Hines Ward and these.
Yeah, guys. I didn't think Tommy Gunn was the same after the neck stinger.
Exactly, but once you got Ben, then Cowher had that missing link. Mm-hmm. Right now, the Steelers don't have that kind of team. They don't have any of the answers. They've got a good player here and there scattered around on both sides of the ball, but they are not even close to being a competitive team right now. Not even close.
Yeah. I mean, they have no links right now. It's a chain without links.
Yeah, exactly.
It's imaginary at this point. Cam Hayward had some interesting things to say after the game, referencing his interaction with Josh Allen. I have never heard a man sound so soft in my life on a football field. He goes on to say that being kicked in my stomach. I mean, he whined. He's like, then there was jawing back and forth, ticked off the entire time because of the quarterback. They're protected and I'm not. I mean, the guy sounds like a baby. Wah. I got kicked. He's a quarterback and he's protected. You can't hit him, but it's okay to hit me. Wow. Dude, take care of it between the whistles, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was the softest, most baby answer to a question I've ever heard. And he sounded like he was pouting still about it when he was being asked the question. I mean, it was like he was trying to come off as Jalen Ramsey who got spit on. It's not the same, bro.
No.
It's not the same. Like, oh yeah, well, he need me. Like when everybody gave, a justification for Jalen Ramsey going after Jamar Chase for being spit on. It's not the same. No. This is a quarterback. You're supposed to be the big bad defensive lineman. You're supposed to be the guy that's pushing people around, having the reputation of being the hard, jerk on the field that's trying to start fights. I mean, that's been his MO since he was a rookie, that he was the guy that was starting fights in training camp. And now he can't handle, a quarterback. And I'll be honest, you mentioned it before. I didn't see a kick. He says he got kicked. I didn't see one.
He said he got kneed.
Yeah.
And you watch the replay, I see nobody getting kneed. I mean, I think what he should have said was, I think I felt him trying to touch my wallet. Because that's the only way that Cam Hayward's going to get mad anymore, is if he thinks you're trying to take money away from his starving family. Because, again, we're talking about pure invisibility. I think he's got, 3.5 sacks on the season. My wife was trying to watch bits and pieces of the game. She goes, did Cam Hayward play today? I'm like, no, none of them did. So I just left it at that. But like I said, I look forward to football season every year, Daniel, and to sit and watch it with my family and make memories. And for the last few years, it's just been depressing. It's just, I don't expect them to sit and suffer with me. So if they want to go do something constructive and beneficial, and I'll just sit there and suffer. But I'm wasted precious minutes of my life watching this. People don't even care. And it looks like ownership don't care. And all we got's excuses. And nobody's wanting to put in the effort to try to, the standard's gone. So what I would do if I'm the Roonies, and this is the way it's going to be from now on, tell everybody, leave your terrible towels at home. Take them, fold them up nice and neat, maybe wash them, whatever. Put them away until the day the Steelers are worthy of a terrible towel. Take the Renegade and put that CD or record or whatever they use, put it away until, again, the team on the field, the product on the field is worthy of the Renegade.
Yeah.
Never say the standard is the standard ever again. They got it right when you walk in the facilities. take that down because it's over. Those are a memory. That's the thing we grew up on. That's something from the past. Now it's mediocrity. So, put something up about mediocrity, Mike. And if we're going to roll with this, but don't try to lean on the success of the past, the blood, sweat, and tears that were placed and given up by the legacy Steelers, the men who give all for this franchise. They deserve better. I can understand James Harrison being pissed with what crap he's seeing going on on the field today. Terry Bradshaw, Jack Lambert, all them guys. Yes, don't mention their names. Don't invite them back and parade them out there at halftime because you're not putting a product on the field worthy of their respect.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Ian Rappaport had reported earlier today that there's not a world that exists where they're going to fire Tomlin. And my question to you is, I don't think they fire him in season. I think that's out wildly. We're going to have to deal with him for the rest of the year. But at least consider trading the guy. If everything that these mainstream media folks are saying is true, that he would be hired in a second, really, really quickly. Well, let's find out. Somebody should give us a first round pick and let's move on. Let's move forward. Because at the end of the day, this team, well, let's put it this way. If it doesn't go well the rest of this year, the draft is going to be in Pittsburgh. How do you think the fans are going to react at that point? Do you think they're going to be cheering in Pittsburgh because they have Mike Tomlin as the head coach? Or do you think there's still going to be a lot of disgruntled fans at the draft in Pittsburgh? I don't think Art Smith wants to have that type of I don't think he wants that look. You're finally hosting a draft. You have a lot of eyes and cameras, and the fan base is upset with the head coach. They're not excited about the team. Do you think that could have some sort of effect on the potential outcome when it comes to Tomlin?
I mean, we've never seen this. We've never seen the Steelers have a draft. In a year that they need a franchise quarterback, even though I don't know if there's going to be one there. Worthy of what it's going to cost to get them. Mm-hmm. If you finish a rebuilding season where you try to take these extra picks, use a pick each round to try to get up and get the guy you really want and are targeting that round, not just accepting who falls to you. Really go after the best player available each round at a position of need. If they do that, I think they could start this rebuild really, really fast with the young pieces they do have here and there. But you can't do it with Mike Tomlin. As I said, Mike Tomlin will not allow a guy to make a mistake. If a young guy makes a mistake, he's going to get put in the doghouse. He's going to get handcuffed. He's going to get a spanking. You can't. That's not how you develop a young quarterback. That's not how you develop any young player. But you're definitely not developing a young quarterback that way. So you got a head coach, you don't know how to do it. You got an offensive coordinator right now. It's the exact opposite offense that you want to give a young quarterback. You don't have the offensive line in front of him yet. Now Broderick Jones is done for the year. You can't give him the fifth-year option because what has he done to make you think he's worth that? I think the fifth year on him will be 17.9.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
You can't do that. You can't. So you're going to let him play it out, and then you might lose him. And if you do, he might go somewhere else and be good, but he ain't going to be good under this offensive line coach. The offense is in shambles. Defense, they have no clue. Either it's the hardest defense ever to learn, or they got the worst defensive coordinator and coaching staff because they still are clueless. I've never heard anybody talk about communications more than this Steelers coaching staff. And the players have no clue what's going on. Half the time they look lost. So, yeah, if you're going to have the draft, I would hope by then they've already traded Mike Tomlin for a draft pick, or he's decided to step away because, as you say, I don't think they're going to fire him. Because if they do, they got to pay. Because, it's guaranteed they're going to have to pay one way or the other. But I think it could be a great thing if you got a coach that can come in like Ben Johnson. They get ahead Ben Johnson. They get ahead Mike Vrabel. We've seen guys that are having excellent years coaching, but they get ahead of these guys. No, we can't. Nobody's better than Tomlin. Oh, give me a break. So I think the fans will be really excited at the draft if certain things happen first. One of them is Tomlin being gone.
Tomlin took a bunch of hard questions, I would say, at the end of the game. They referenced him being booed and those type of things. What are you expecting tomorrow during his press conference? I know he's going to come out there, talk about the last game. Do you think he'll mention anything when it comes to the fan base and how frustrated the fan base may feel? And I mean, he's got to hear, some of the noise, even from mainstream media. I mean, you look at it's the topic on all of the mainstream talking heads is it time for Tomlin to go? I would be dumbfounded if it's not brought up tomorrow's press conference. Any predictions of you think of what we'll hear?
He'll mention turnover somewhere.
Yeah.
That's big. The turnovers, those two turnovers that just got, we couldn't do what we wanted to implement. They weren't going to do nothing different. They never did figure out how to stop that running play where they couldn't set the edge. I mean, that's the whole game. Okay, let's think back. What happened in the Bengals game, Daniel? Slant. Jamar Chase, throw in a Higgins. Jamar Chase, throw in somebody else. I mean, if a team has success, they'll just keep going to it, because the Steelers can't fix anything. They can't make any adjustments. He has no clue. There was times I thought he was going to cry on the sidelines yesterday. I recognize that where you're holding back tears because that's how I feel watching them. And if you watch Tomlin's eyes, they get real big, and it looks like he's going to start weeping because he's standing there and he's like, you ever known anybody that got promoted above their capabilities?
Yeah.
And they're scared to death that everybody's going to figure it out. And when they do figure it out, SOL, right?
Right.
That's where the Steelers are right now. Because now that Mike Tomlin is being exposed and there's nowhere else to hide, there's nobody else to blame. We've blamed every offensive coordinator up to this. We've blamed every defensive coordinator up to this. I was guilty. I blamed Keith Butler after LeBeau, and then we've all tried to throw blame away from Tomlin. And then a few years ago, a few of us figured out, no, it's Tomlin.
Yeah.
It's Tomlin. But it's not just Tomlin. Like I said, this is an organizational problem from Art, who has no balls and won't do what he needs to do. And it just trickles on down, and they've allowed this to happen. So I hold the whole organization responsible for taking away my joy and love for the game of football, because now it's an ordeal to watch, and it used to be a pleasure.
I hear you, man. For me, my prediction on what Tomlin's going to do is he's first going to start by blaming something that really didn't have a factor. And then, like last time, what did he say? We got to punt better. He's going to blame something that isn't that big of a deal. Maybe perhaps, our cornerbacks need to tackle better on the outside. No, our defensive ends need to set the edge better. And then he's going to come in with something weird, like, sometimes we eat cereal with forks. It's time to cut the grass in the snow, something of that nature. And then open it up for questions. That's how every press conference goes. He blames something insignificant and talk about the differences between that and winning, and then some sort of Tomlinism that nobody's heard before. And it's just,
and they're looking at everything. We're going to examine everything. And guess what changes? Nothing.
Yeah. And then also something to the effect like, hey, I don't live in the hypotheticals. This isn't pretend land. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And at the end of the day, he's not going to answer any real questions. I think one of the big questions is going to be possibly Aaron Rodgers. Should he start? Do you think the Steelers should start Aaron Rodgers? His backup Mason Rudolph didn't play so well. I'm ready to give Howard a shot, see what he's got. That's where I'm at this point. I don't think we're going anywhere with the other two of the other quarterbacks, to be 110% honest with you. Rodgers he was he was already skittish before the broken arm. It's not any better since, and he's not. There was a video of Mason and Rogers throwing the ball at practice, and I was thinking to myself, are they purposefully throwing the ball inaccurate so that they can help the receiver catch passes? Not a single ball. I mean, it was horrible. Go look at it. The practice, I think it was like on All Sports Steelers or something, and it's just it's Mason, and then it's Aaron, and they're throwing the ball, and it's down the field, and it's the most inaccurate throws I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of the subpar performance from the more important positions on the team, and something needs to change. I just know it's not, but I just hope at the end of this puts the Steelers in a position to make some changes. But in order to do that, like to go out there and draft, quarterback and some players that need some developing that could be franchise players, you need a head coach and a coaching staff that is capable of developing players.
Exactly.
And this coaching staff is too small and micromanaged for any of that to ever happen.
Oh yeah, they have no idea how to develop, how to build confidence, build a rapport. I mean, a guy makes a mistake and he's in the doghouse for weeks, and it's like, well, it'll depend on his practice participation and what we see at practice. If he gets another opportunity, and in the same BS that Tomlin says every time, and then they finally get in there, and then you get a guy like Johnson, and he's running with the ball, and he's holding it like this because he's like, oh God, I can't fumble. Yeah. Don't worry about making a play, getting yards, breaking one for a touchdown. It's holding. It's just, how many times you've seen a guy make a long run holding the ball like this? But that's how they do, because they're scared to death to make another mistake, and they have no clue. Tomlin's a guy that needs older, established guys, and that's why he looks for those. The problem is, by the time they become available and the Steelers can get them, they're old, past their due date. Just like Russell Wilson, just like Aaron Rodgers. Who's the old guy they could get next year? I don't even know. If Stafford comes back next year at
Joe Flacco,
or in a back brace, they might be like, "Oh, that's the guy we want right there," because they were trying to talk about getting Stafford in this past offseason. But look how good he's doing. He wouldn't be doing that in Pittsburgh because one, he wouldn't have the offensive talent, he wouldn't have the head coach, he wouldn't have the offensive coordinator. So again, nobody wants to come to Pittsburgh anymore because they have no answers. They have a lot of problems.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. There's no answers here. And now you have the quarterback going back to some familiar, tactics that he used to do in other places by calling out teammates, which I actually like. He called out Jonnu Smith for not showing up for film study, called him out for running the wrong route when he changed the play. He needs to be called out. And and why is he even out there if that's the case? If he's not showing up, he's not in the film room, he's not he's not doing, he's not checking into the right plays, he's not running the right routes. You have Pat Freiermuth right behind him. Why is he getting less snaps? Like, it's just so frustrating, the loyalty of some of these coaches to certain players and certain packages or certain, offensive game plans that they've stuck to. It's frustrating, and it's got to go. It's just got to go. Like, I think everybody's at their tipping point. There are very few and far in between folks who are supportive of this coaching staff and what they're doing. The philosophy, the game plans that they've put out, the effort of the players that have been on the field. If players aren't practicing, which this isn't the first time we hear this. Aaron Rodgers, this is his first year as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he's saying things that we have heard from other players in the past, like, oh, we need to go back and practice. I think Minka Fitzpatrick was talking about it last year. Practice isn't where it's supposed to be. Nobody's got their mind in the right level. Many times we've heard the story where players think that, you just got to show up, and because you're wearing the black and gold, you're going to win. And that's not the case in this league. And, if that's the mentality, that comes from the leadership, that comes from who's at the top. And if they can't change that, you got to change the coach, man. I mean, there's just no ands, ifs, or buts about it. This has to be his last year. I think that if the Steelers stick with him and they utilize him to develop a quarterback, I think that's a bad idea. It's just as bad of an idea as it was to allow a general manager on his way out with a recent history of bad first-round draft picks to choose the next first-round quarterback. I thought that was a mistake to allow the GM to do that on his way out. I think it would be a bigger mistake to allow the coach to do it on their way out. But this is the Steelers, and so they'll probably do it that way.
I want to say one more thing, and I know we're done.
Yeah.
Guys, you can go back on YouTube and watch our podcast. You can go back a long time, look at the history, and you'll see what we've been saying. We've been saying for years now. A lot of this is repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been saying it for a long time. Now you're hearing it from the national media. Now you're hearing it from the local sports beat people, sports beat reporters, and local podcasts, and everybody else. And there's a lot of hyperbole going on, a lot of overreaction, and off with their heads. We're coming to that point next. Like it's King Richard or something. But what I'm saying is, if you pay attention, remember who's been saying this for a while, a good long while. And that's who you need to listen to and pay a little extra attention to. Because also, and I know Daniel's the same way, if I'm wrong and we're wrong, we'll admit it. Now, you have a vast majority that will forget they ever said it. And they will only remember what they said last week. But I'm telling you, pay attention because this is a process and it's going to take a little bit of time. And we've been saying it for a while, but now the Steelers have to commit to it because when you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go, and that's up. Because honestly, I don't know if they could be much worse because they could conceivably lose every game the rest of this year.
They definitely can. It's quite a possibility. And if they do that, they're at 6-11, roughly, the same, record that they had when they went out there and got Ben Roethlisberger, and roughly in the same position, a quarterback who's injury at this point prone is Aaron Rodgers, and Tommy Maddox back then, he was dealing with the stinger and had some other injuries that came out. Mm-hmm. And you're in position to pick up a quarterback probably. I think there's a good possibility that can happen. I think this is going to be the first year that the Steelers under Mike Tomlin have a losing record, which, I think majority of that non-losing record had more to do with Ben than Mike Tomlin. Now, he's had some teams. I'm not going to take away all the credit from him. He's had some teams with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky that he's gotten, Duck and Mason Rudolph, where he's gotten them to 500 or better. However, he was also responsible for putting those teams together. He was responsible for having a Kenny Pickett or a Mitch Trubisky being your starting quarterback. He was responsible for it being Mason and Duck and not sticking with Mason that early and switching him off and possibly even destroying his confidence and things of that nature. So, although he's done some things with some bad teams, he's also responsible for why those teams were bad. Shannon, what do you got going on the rest of the week?
Well, just on Wednesday at 8, we'll have our Pump Your Brakes and with King Tate and Big G. And I know I watched a little bit of their 2-minute warning, and it was dark days for my homies there. They hit rock bottom, and I think we all felt like that after watching that debacle. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of colorful commentary Wednesday night. So tune in and check us out.
Tune in. And tomorrow we're going to have Big Brosco show. I'm excited to see what their opinions were. I believe Big Bro was in the stadium last night. So yep. It'll be good to hear his perspective and what he heard as far as chants and things of that nature. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out the audio only podcast where you'll find mine, State of the Steelers, that airs out on Saturdays at 11 a.m. It's tough, but we're still going to be here, guys, still talking about our favorite team, regardless of how poorly they play. They may not have their heart into it, but we do. So give us a like and subscribe for that. Shannon, take us out, my man.
Woo!